Hello everyone, welcome to my video. I'm Arash Jalalat and today I want to talk about Azure Functions on Azure Container Apps. This is my first video and I'm a DevOps engineer. In my free time I like to research about various technologies and I also started writing blogs since last year, but I decided also to make a video. So hopefully you will like it. Please leave a comment if you have any tips or suggestions. So what are function apps? These are microservices, APIs, which are serverless, lightweight, and also have less infrastructure. So basically you can develop a lot of function apps and deploy it very fast to production, which also benefits the time to market. So the Azure function itself exists a long time, but what is new since a short time is that Azure function can also now run on Azure Container Apps. So what are these Azure Container Apps? These are cloud native, scalable, and you can run Linux containers or other containers on it. So what's nice about it, it's fully managed by Microsoft, so you don't have to worry about the infrastructure, and also in the background it's running Kubernetes, so you don't have to worry about managing the infrastructure, so you have a lot of features to use with the Azure Container Apps. So today I want also to show how you can build a function app and deploy it to Azure Container Apps with a CI/CD pipeline. So I will use as an IDE Visual Studio Code and JetBrains Rider, Azure Functions with C# code. I will use that one with the JetBrains Rider because you can then build and store a local instance very easily, and then see if what your application is showing if you initiate a call. And with the Visual Studio Code, we'll show the bicep templates for Azure resources. And finally, we'll use Azure DevOps and Azure Pipelines for the CI/CD part. So you can continuously integrate and deploy it to the production environment or other environments, of course. So what I have here is a GitHub repo. I created this one. It's minimal code. It's made in .NET 8 isolated project, which is a benefit because it's independent and also chance of less conflicts if you run it in an isolated project. But you can search the internet about .NET isolated project. You can see a lot of documentation about it, also from Microsoft. But I will also show you how you can use the infra as code bicep templates, which are very readable bicep templates. And you can then use Azure pipelines to build and deploy it, of course, to Azure. You can start, of course, by yourself by having a Azure subscription, and then also have a Azure DevOps organization, which is free to start. And Azure Functions core tools to build and start with the function apps locally. But also you need a .NET SDK. In this case, .NET SDK version 8. So if you want to start build locally, you can of course clone this GitHub repo, and then check this repo out. Go to the source folder, and then if you have done this, the installation of this, then you can func start from the terminal, and then you will get a console with a link. You can navigate to it to show what you have built. And if you want to start from scratch, you can also use this command here. And then after this, you can use Azure pipelines to deploy to the Azure environment. I will shortly switch over to the Azure cloud So I have some resource groups here. I will use this function app, Azure FACA, which is now empty. But yeah, as I mentioned, you will use a container on the Azure Container Apps environment. But for that, we need to push the container, the image, to some kind of registry. I will do that to the Azure Container registries. So this is the Azure Container registries, which is now empty, so I can create one. I'll just use the empty resource group. So AJ tag, registry name, West Europe, basic price plan, and then this is fine, review create. So I just made a Azure Container registry in the portal, which can be used to push your images to the Azure cloud. And this is the Azure DevOps environment. So I have an organization, I have a project which is called Arash, and I have also a pipeline here. And this pipeline is basically this pipeline here in the pipelines folder, Azure Pipelines. This is configuration as code, the CI/CD pipeline in YAML. So if you want to understand how this is working, you can search the internet, Azure Pipelines YAML. There's a lot of documentation about it, how you can set this up. So what I've done, I've included parameters here. So if you start the pipeline, the pipeline will ask for input. In this case, subscription ID, resource group, the prefix you want to use for your Azure resources when deployed to Azure. This is the ACR name, so the Azure Container Registry name, which I just created now. And what kind of Docker image name you want. So this can be different. So I will show an example later. And then this pipeline does have a pool, agent pool, Microsoft hosted agent, which is running on a Ubuntu machine. So to run this workload, and on a Ubuntu machine will be used. So then we have here stages. In this case, I have a build stage and a deployment stage. In the build stage, I will of course use a Docker file and to build the container app, and then push it to the Azure Container Registry. This is working via Azure CLI, and you can create a service connection, which is mentioned here, Azure subscription. So my service connection is called Test Automatic, and the service connection does allow you to deploy or make a connection from Azure DevOps to Azure. I'm using a managed identity, which is more secure because there is no secret involved or password. I've also written a blog about that, so you can read that in the comments to navigate to my website about that. And then after when it's pushed, I will deploy this via the which is Azure Resource Manager template deployment task. So I filled in some parameters here. So this will deploy your app to the Azure cloud. So let me open Visual Studio Code. It's here. So I've cloned my repository here, Azure Functions and Container Apps. As you can see, so what I showed you just the Azure pipeline, it's here as well. And what I want to show you as well is the main.bicep file. So this is the infra as code, and some resources are required. Let me show you that quickly. So as you can see here, this is the documentation. automate resource deployment for your function app in Azure Functions. So some resources are required when running a function app in Azure. So this is the storage account, required, application insight, which is recommended, the managed environment to run this on the container apps, and the function app itself is required, of course. And I have this template there, which is asking for some input, but this input is passed through the pipeline here, infra function app. So ARM templates deployment, and we can use override parameters to pass these parameters to the template of the bicep. And if you can see here, so Azure storage account is added here. So you have a lot of options to choose from, but this is just a basic setup. Also for monitoring, I've added a log analytics resource. Also the managed environment, which is of course required to run it on container apps, and then the logging will be written to the log analytics workspace. And what I want to do is deploy this function app, which is here, through the pipeline to Azure. But as I show you, in the Azure pipelines, there's a build phase, which will build the container and then push it to Azure. And when it's pushed to Azure, the container apps environment wants to pull that image. So I have this resource template, and then I've made it more secure to use a managed identity. So what's a managed identity? So let me show you in the portal of Azure, managed identities. So one managed identity already exists here. So a managed identity is just a resource in Azure which doesn't require any password or a secret, and that makes it more secure. You don't have to think about extending secrets or expiring secrets. So it's a very nice feature of Azure. And this managed identity is more and more integrated into the Azure resources. So if you work between Azure resources, you have the option to add this managed identity. So what basically happens is that I want to assign this managed identity to the function app, and then this function app can pull the container image from Azure Container Registry. And then you don't have to think about any secrets, so that's a very nice feature. So if you want to assign it, I have an example here. So this is the function app. I will assign the identity, user assigned, and also you can here mention the Docker image for the Linux FX version. And don't forget to also mention the Docker registry server URL to pull the image. And with this part, you will create the identity and then assign the ACR pool permission to it to have the sufficient permissions for the managed identity to pull it. So let me switch over to the pipelines part. So this is the, I've run it one time, and let me run it one more time. So run new. So it's pre-filled in now, pre-filled because I've run it already, so in the previous run. So these values are now filled in, Azure subscription, the resource name, assign the prefix for the resources. This is of course the ACR name, which I just made in the portal. AJ tag, and then also the name of the Docker image. Can be of course everything. This is the repository. If we go to the registry here, and we go to C services repositories. So the repository name will be .NET sample, and then this is the image name. You can also assign a tag to it, like latest or version 1, but I will use it like this at the moment, which means it will use the latest. So I can run this code. So I've triggered this manually, and then if I refresh this. So as you can see, I will use the Ubuntu image. It checked out my repo, and then with this command, it will build push image. So as you can see, the job name is build push image, which reflects also the task name here. Now, as you can see, since we are using a service connection with a managed identity, it will now make a connection to the Azure cloud environment, and it will now just build the image. So I will shortly pause the video so to continue. So the process is now finished of building and pushing the image. Took about 2 minutes and 33 seconds. So if you look in the logging, we can see that the application is built successfully and pushed to the registry. So we can verify that in the repositories here, .NET sample /rs. It's the latest version. So now that this is pushed, it will also now run the infra function app. It will now deploy this template, bicep template, which I show you in Visual Studio Code to Azure. So in the meantime, I want to also show the C# code, how to run that locally. So this is the, let me minimize this. This is the code. So what you see here, this is the C# code, which is created by the func init command. And this is just a simple C# function app with a HTTP trigger, which can be called with a get or post method. And when this is executed, a message will be shown. Welcome to Azure Functions running on Container Apps. So let's run this locally. If we start this, so a endpoint will be shown here. This is the endpoint which you can use to navigate to. Copy URL, and let's open a browser here and paste it. So as you can see, it's now running locally. Welcome to Azure Functions running on Container Apps. So if we change this to something else, and modify it. So let's now run this again. This one, as you can see, and modified is added. Then it's of course very easy to again push this or build this and push this to the registry and running in the cloud. Let's stop this. This is a one of the triggers you can add. but you can of course also add more triggers if you want. So yeah, that's not very difficult. If you open the terminal here, we say new, then it will ask you which trigger you want. So I created the second one, HTTP trigger, but you can also choose from various other triggers like the timer trigger. You can add a cron expression which you run on certain times. But you can also create a queue trigger which will then send where you can send a trigger message which is set on a queue and picked up from there. Yeah, so you have a lot of choice to choose from. Let's say let's choose a number 5. That's your function name. Okay, simple timer trigger. So as you can see, it's now created. Let's add it here as well. Simple timer trigger. And it also added a sample of a cron expression. This is running every 5 minutes. So as you can see, it's also some intelligence here. So it's complaining about something. The logging message template should not very okay. So these are comes very handy because you can then resolve these issues if you want. Also here as well, convert into primary construction. Let me go back here. So if you run this, it will run just a timer, and then you can do what you want with it. So I'm also seeing that the code also made a README file about the timer trigger. So it gives you a skeleton, and then you can also expand it if you want. If you don't want it, you can delete it. So let's switch shortly over now to the cloud, because I think it's now finished. So it's now finished here in the pipeline. And if you go to the Azure portal, and I go to the resource group, and now we can see that some resources are added to the resource group. So the registry was already added, but these are added by the automation. So as you can see, this is the function app. If I open it, I can see a URL. If I click on it, I can see that the app is running successfully. But locally, I was calling the API, which showed the message. I want to see that as well, so I can go to the sample trigger, which is the name of the function. And then get function URL, default function key. Okay, that's fine. So as you can see, it will go to the API path and then sample trigger, and then use a function code to authorize. If I copy that and paste it here, I can see that it's working. So this is an endpoint of the function itself. You can also put a Azure App Gateway in front of it, or API management to modify the domain as well, and to also have more security. But this is just a demo to show how you can automate the function app on container apps. I can also show the container app environment, the managed environment. So as you can see, one application is running on it, the function app. But you have more settings you can play with. So as you can see, these are terms, ingress, or Kubernetes resources, and the apps itself, where you can go. But you can of course run also other types of applications on the managed environment. And then, if you're done with your demo, you can also don't forget to remove these resources. So this is a short demo about how you can automate the deployment of a function app on the container apps in a short time. So there's a lot of other things I could show, but maybe I will make another video to show how you can do that. So I hope you liked this video, and you can again leave a comment if you want, if you have any tips or suggestions. And I'm wishing you a nice day. Bye bye.